Okay, so today we're going to start the balloon-powered car. And first we're going to work by creating the body of the car. It says that air power has been harnessed for centuries to power the sails of boats, create the mechanical motion of a windmill. In this project, you will harness the power of air captured in a balloon to power a 3D printed car you're going to design and print. In this project, you will design a body for your 3D printed car, create a path of air to exit the balloon in a way that will power your car, and then create wheels and axles for your car to roll on. We're actually not going to create the axles or the wheels. We're just going to borrow some Lego pieces so we won't have to worry about that third step. Click ahead, and this first step is to create the car body design. The body of the car is the main shape of the project. It will tell us where the axles and wheels will be positioned, and it will have the balloon connector on it. So we're going to begin here. We scroll down, the instructions say to start by placing a box on the work plane and sizing it to be 20 millimeters wide and 60 millimeters long. So we're going to click on the bottom box here. It's already 20 millimeters wide. If we click down here, we can type in 60 to make it 60 millimeters long. We click on the top box and it's already set to be 20 millimeters tall. It says continue to the next step. So we click to the next page. It says add holes for the axles. So we need to create openings for the axles to run through the car, which we can then attach wheels to those. Number 1 says to place a cylinder on the work plane and size it to 11 millimeters in diameter and 25 millimeters tall. The second step says to change the cylinder to a hole. To save us some time, we're just going to grab the cylinder that's already a hole. We're going to click the bottom corner, and instead of changing it to 11, we're going to change it to 5 because that's what it says in our criteria. And then click on the top square and change that to 25 millimeters tall. Now it says continue to the next step. So we're going to click over to the next page. Now it tells us to align the first axle. We're actually going to skip this step and we're going to move ahead a little bit to make our lives a little easier. So I'm going to show you a few tricks. So skip to page 6. It says create and align the second axle. So we're going to scroll down and it says to duplicate the first axle hole by selecting the duplicate button on the toolbar. So up here we have the duplicate button, or a shortcut is to use Control-C, Control-V, and you can see it's already duplicated your two cylinders. So what we're going to do now is grab one of the cylinders and just separate those apart a smidge here for a moment. We're going to use our Align tool, and we're going to highlight both cylinders at the same time. Click Align at the top, and we're going to align them in the middle together. And then we are going to then click Off, then highlight those two again. We're going to use our right click button on our mouse to rotate our screen so we can see the side of the cylinders differently. And we need to rotate these cylinders to 90 degrees. So if we click on these arrows in the top here, we can type in the box 90 and it will automatically set our cylinders on the exact angle that we would prefer. We use my right click button again to rotate back around to the front so I can see this better. And before I start to align my cylinders with my box, I'm going to go ahead and move them together over so that they are in front of my box. So I'm going to group them momentarily and undo. And I'm going to just move them down and over by using my arrow keys. Now I'm looking at this from in front of my box and I see that I don't have them too far apart here. So I am going to go ahead and highlight all 3 of my shapes, and I'm going to use my Align tool, and I'm going to align them in the center and in the center. And then I'm going to click off my objects and just click on my 2 axles that are grouped together and use this black arrow that's on top, click on it and lower it until it says that it is at a height of 5 millimeters from the base of your car. Now that you have done that, if you look at it, you can see that your holes are on both sides of your car. And so now you can go ahead and highlight all 3 and group those together. If you rotate back around, you can see that those holes go straight through your car. Okay, so then the next step is to click over, and it says to make your car more aerodynamic. So it says that you don't see very many square cars on the road, and that's for a good reason, because square shapes have a hard time moving through the air. So we're going to streamline your car by making it a little more aerodynamic, which just means that the air can flow over, under, and around the car more easily. So first it says to place a wedge shape on the work plane. So we're going to scroll down on our shapes bar over here till we find the wedge and drag it over here to our work plane. And it says to size it to be 5 millimeters tall. So we're going to click on the top and type in 5, hit enter. It says that it wants it to be 20 millimeters wide, so it's the same width as our box, and then to make it 40 millimeters long. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in, 40 millimeters long, and then change it to a hole shape. We do that by clicking on the gray circle up here at the top, and then continue to the next step. It says now we need to position the wedge so that it removes material from the front of the car to make it more aerodynamic. So we need to rotate the wedge 180 degrees so that the flat face is on the work plane and is facing upwards. So we need to click on this set of arrows here and type in 180 degrees so it flips over our wedge. It doesn't look like it did anything, but now if we rotate around, you can see that there is the little part on top that is floating on this side. You can see it a little better when we go like this, that's in the air there. So now it's in the right direction. And then we need to rotate our piece so it's aligned in the same direction as our car. So we're going to click on our piece again. And this time we're going to rotate it on this side. And we're going to rotate it 90 degrees since that's the way that our car is facing. Now we're going to highlight both of those two pieces at the same time. Click on our align tool. And we're going to center and center, and then we're actually going to put it to the far left of our box since it doesn't actually go all the way across our box, and then align it to the top. Okay, then it says to select both shapes and to group them. So we're going to select and group, and you can see that it has now taken off a little notch of the front of our car here. Now, if we click over, the last step says to add a nose wedge to the car. So we're going to grab another wedge shape from over here and add it to our work plane. We want it to be 20 millimeters wide again. We want it to be a height of 15 millimeters tall so that it matches up with that height that we just made over here. And if I rotate, we also want it to then be 10 millimeters long. So we're going to change this from 20 to 10 so that it has a short face. And then it says that we need to rotate it 90 degrees counterclockwise so that it's facing the right direction. So that's this one on the bottom right here, this little arrow down here again. So if we click on that one and we type in 90, you see that it's facing the wrong direction. So I'm going to click on it again. Oops, undo. Having some technical difficulties. There we go. I can see it a little bit better now. So this time I'm going to type in -90, and we're going to type in -180 because it didn't go back around the right way. There we go. Now it's facing the right direction. Now, if we click on both of these two objects and we use our align tool again, we are going to then click directly onto the red shape because then it'll make this wedge align with the red shape. So if we click on the red shape and then click to the front of the ed shape here, it's now just behind it. So if we, sorry, undo, didn't do exactly what I wanted it to, sorry, align, and we're aligning to the center. And then we're going to click off it and we're going to rotate our screen so we can see the front of our car. We're going to drag our work plane and drop it on the face of our car. And then we're going to click on the wedge and hit D, and it drops the face directly to our work plane. Drag our work plane back to the floor, drop it on the ground. And then if we rotate the car around, we can see that it's now lined up. If we highlight those two objects in group, we now have the basic beginning shape for our car, and we have completed the first part of our lesson, and we can